So, today we are going to discuss something that is a very common confusion when it comes to the Eastern philosophies, the concept of Atma and Anatma. Many people, when they come from a Buddhist background and try to learn about Advaita, or they learn that Buddhism is one of the non dual philosophies, and they try to explore other non dual philosophies like Advaita or Hinduism in general, they come across the word Atma. And to them, the word Anatma or Anatta is very familiar. The concept of Anatma. Anatma just means not self. And here they come to hear that in Hinduism or Advaita, the word Atma is the true self. And this creates a lot of confusion. Then what is the final reality? Is it Anatma or is it Atma? So let's understand what Atma is and what Anatma is, right? For Atma, we will try to just refer to Shankaracharya's explanation of Atma. Whatever his idea or understanding of the self is at least in line with most of what Hinduism or the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads or the Brahma Sutras would speak of. So the self here is Atma. Atma is the self, right? If you come to India and you talk to any average person on the streets, in Hindi you will hear words like Atma Nirbhar, which means self-reliant, or Atma Vishwas, which means self-confidence. So Atma just means the self. It is just a word. Atma just means the self. And the way you can know the self, the true self, as in the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta or Hinduism, is by many ways. But one of the commonly told ways is neti neti, the process of neti neti, which means not this, not this. And really, how do you do neti neti? It's just that you observe everything. You see the world around you. Obviously, you don't think the world around you is you. So that's easy to negate. That this is not self. What you see outside of you is not self. But what you see as yourself is this body and mind, right? The body is also not self, because the body is just an exoskeleton that you're sort of wearing. The body has no power or will of its own, right? If you tell your body to get up from the bed, it will get up from the bed. Or the mind tells it to go exercise, the body will exercise. Or if the mind tells it to keep sleeping, don't bother to work or get up or do exercise, it will keep sleeping. So the body is just a suit. It's just a suit made up of flesh and bones. It is the mind that is the true self so far. But once you try to understand what the mind is just layers and layers of information. Your thoughts, your past experiences, your conclusions, it's all just information, layers and layers of it. And through meditation, you can know that the thoughts can be watched. You close your eyes and try to see what you're thinking, and the thoughts will be visible to you. Like, just close your eyes and just see what you're able to think of. Just sit silently. You will probably think about, what am I doing, or what will I cook for dinner tonight, or I have this presentation tomorrow that I have to ready up, and all such trivial thoughts come to you. Not really trivial, they could be important, but you'll be able to see the thoughts for what they are. And once you're able to see them for what they are, they become objects that you can see, just like you see objects out in the world. And really, then you will try to know the seer, because that is the true you. That is what is seeing the thoughts. That is how you know the mind is also not you. And what you're left with is the seer, the witness of it all. And that is just consciousness. And this consciousness, mind you, is devoid of any conclusions, any information, any judgment, any likes, dislikes. any usefulness or not usefulness, because all of that is information, right? Pure consciousness, as it's called sometimes. It's called pure consciousness because it's not consciousness laden with information. It is just pure consciousness. So much so that it's not even identifiable as consciousness sometimes. Just like when you're sleeping, are you conscious? Most of you would say, no, I'm dead asleep. But if somebody kicks you while you're asleep, you immediately jump up, right? Now tell me, what came first, the feeling of being kicked, or did consciousness come first? It wasn't that the kick propelled you into consciousness, right? If the kick came first, then then you wouldn't be conscious of the kick. It's just that the consciousness was already there. That is why you can register the kick, and you feel it, and you jump out of bed. So really, consciousness always is, and it's devoid of any information, right? You could feel as if you're dead or dead asleep, but yeah, that is the true self. And this distinction is very important because that is what will also help you understand what Anatma is. Pure consciousness, so much so that it's not even identifiable as consciousness. It's just pure looking. And everything really appears in this. Everything appears to this consciousness. Now you might say, no, it is looking at things. The things out there are very much real. No, the things are just appearances. Because they appear to you in a specific way, and to a bat who doesn't have the senses that we do, like it has very different eyes, it has eyes that are inferior to ours, but it has the sense of letting out a screech and then receiving those frequencies back, and then creating a mesh experience of the world around it, an experience that we can never have. So it is experiencing reality as something else, and we are experiencing the same reality as something else. So anything that you experience is not really real, because I wouldn't say it's not real, but it's not as it appears to be. That is why it's an appearance. And it all appears to the consciousness. That is our true self. The bat is conscious like us, purely conscious, but when it flows through its specific sense organs, it just shows him a different world. And when it sort of shoots out through our eyes and other sense organs, it makes sense of reality in a very different way. And then it registers in the mind, and the mind just stores that information as a unique experience and then builds on top of that. The mind just grows and grows. Information multiplies, information interacts with each other, and then new ideas and concepts are created. Where do ideas come from in the mind? They're just an amalgamation of information and new information coming out of two different sets of information. That is how AI works as well. But that is besides the point. The truest, the commonest thing about us is consciousness. That is really the true self. And through Neti Neti, we can arrive at this conclusion. We can know this. In fact, it's not a new knowing, it's just a realization of what we are. And that is really Atma. That is the self. But if you go across India or the Indian subcontinent, even where these philosophies are very prevalent, even where Hinduism is the dominant religion, people would know nothing about this. They think of Atma as the soul, Atma as an individual soul. That when I die, my Atma goes to heaven, and then it takes on a different life. It is true, but there is no my in it. Atma is just Atma. Yeah, I mentioned this because this will come in handy when we are understanding Anatma. So I think if this is enough about Atma, and of course, here we'll keep talking about it. But let's move on to Anatma now. Anatma. Anatma is very familiar to Buddhists, to anybody who has explored the philosophy of Buddha and later Buddhist saints, and yeah, many prominent figures in Buddhism. Anatma literally means not self, anatma. Anatma is very easy to understand in Hindi. It just means not self. And really, why Buddha stresses on this has to be known through his life. Now, we all know the story of Buddha. I'm not going to repeat it. He was a prince, and at a point in his life, he understood that life is really not eternal. I am going to die. And before even dying, there's a lot of suffering in the world. If disease hits you before death, which it generally does, then you suffer badly. And in the end, there is no silver lining to it. You just die. And everybody, most of them, are miserable when they die. And as he sees these sights through the streets of people getting old, somebody's diseased, there's so much of suffering, he sees a sage who is very happily sitting in his old age, and he looks content, and he gets to know that this guy is a renunciate. He has renounced the world and its stupidity, and and now he has found bliss, right? He's happy and content. And these things trouble the then Prince Siddharth. He was not Buddha then, he was troubled. It didn't let him live the life as it was. And he left his palace and went out in the search of truth. That if we are to die one day, and that too miserably, why are we born in the first place? Many such questions troubled him. And from there he went on to many gurus, many prevalent gurus at that time. He went on to their ashrams, he learnt under them. Of course, they were all mostly Vedic teachers, so they would teach him these concepts of the true self, of the mind, the body, and Antahkarna, and all such terms which lead on to the Atma, or the true self, and how the true self is undying and eternal. But Buddha would not be convinced, and he would go from guru to guru, and every guru he would say that I understand thus far, but it still doesn't convince me because of so and so reason. And then that guru would send him to another guru who would be a scholar or an expert in that discipline, and then Buddha would go to him and learn under him. And Buddha, at that time, he learned under a lot of gurus. And then finally he moved on and went to the forests, where he met some yogis, and the yogis taught him something very different, which was not really scholarly or bookish. Yogis, they rely on bodily experience, not really bodily, but body and mental experience, and something they can verify through personal experience, which Buddha was attracted towards, and he studied under them. And one very strict disciplinarian sort of yogi told him to starve himself and really abstain from everything. And he abstained from eating food, so much so that one day he was completely, starved, and he was reduced to just bones and just skin hanging on bones. He was that thin at that time, and he was going to get water from the river, and he couldn't even get to the water. He just fell down before reaching the water. And he was then given some water by somebody, and then Buddha vowed that, I have all the information that I need to get. I have learned a lot from gurus. None of this satisfies me. And, if I die before fulfilling my purpose in this ordeal, then what's the point? So, after that, we know what happens. He sits down and meditates with everything that he has for certain number of days, and then he reaches Buddhahood and becomes the Buddha, the one who knows. And really, after that, he starts disseminating his knowledge that will really free people up. And during his teachings, he would speak of this concept of Atma, and he would caution people against it, because he wouldn't want anybody to, grab onto or latch onto anything as the self. Because people would just say, oh, I know now, this is the self. Oh, I understand that I am not the body, but this within me there is an Atma. Because the Atma is not really within you. This witness consciousness is not really within you or outside of you. It's not within the mind even. It's not even a matter of place and time. It just always is. It is probably everywhere. Even saying it is everywhere is a sort of a misstatement. It's like everywhere is in consciousness, or every time or everywhere is within consciousness. And I'd like to repeat here, it's not just consciousness, it's pure consciousness, devoid of any qualities. So people, when they would grab onto anything as the self, oh, this is me, and Buddha would ask them, what is you then? What have you arrived at? And they would tell Buddha a specific answer. And Buddha would say, that is Anatma. Anything you can grab onto or latch onto or hold, even as a concept or idea in your head, is Anatma. Anatma, you must know it as you must just realize it as nothing that you can grab onto, really. Another very, very important thing to understand here is that these are not two different concepts. This is just one and the same thing. The true self is really the self that is talked about in Advaita is not really myself or yourself or any specific thing. It's just the witness consciousness in which everything appears. And this is just one way of looking at it, a very good way at that. But many people understand it in different ways. Like Buddha, when he was asked that if there is nothing called Atma and it's all Anatma, then what is the basis of everything? What is this world that we see? He would then talk of the concept of Shunyata. Maybe he didn't call it that at that point, but he would talk about Pratitya Samutpad, which means everything is dependently originated out of Shunyata. It's sometimes known as the void or emptiness in Buddhism. But yeah, Shunyata. Shunya is also the word for zero in Hindi. And the way I see it, I have a very unique way of seeing it, is that it's zero. Shunyata is zero, and everything is dependently originated out of it, which means just like you can pull out a +1 and a -1 out of zero. Everything is dependently originated. And this really aligns very well with the Advaitic view, which is that everything is an appearance to consciousness. It's that when pure consciousness becomes consciousness, a unique person's consciousness flowing through the mind and the senses, then an appearance, an external appearance, appears to it. You see how the subject and object are born, dependently originated, not really born. It's like it's a different expression of it, just like +1 -1 is a different expression of zero. So this concept of dependent origination is another thing that really confirms what both of these sides are talking about. And really, if I mean, just for humor purposes, if Shankaracharya and Buddha were to ever meet, I wouldn't think they would disagree. They would be rather elated to hear each other's perspectives and see how they've arrived at the same conclusion through very different ways. So much so that at one point they seem like opposites of each other, Atma and Anatma. Anatma is called Anatta in Pali. So if you've heard of Anatta, then Anatta is Anatma. It's just a variation of that same word. So yeah, non-dual philosophy can be arrived at through so many different ways. And at many times they will seem like they are coming from opposite ends. But that is non-duality, right? Everything arises out of it, even black and white. You can arrive at non-duality from white, you can arrive at non-duality from black. I hope this helps.